What if usefulness was the ultimate curse? A vending machine heart-pumping items instead of blood, yearning for the warmth of worthless whimsy. Have you ever pondered the poetry of provision, where every dispensed delight dooms you to a dungeon's drudgery? Your form a fortress of forgotten humanity. Like the tireless toilers of the Industrial Revolution's Manchester mills, their looms weaving wealth from weary bones, or the silent sentinels of wartime ration queues, doling out sustenance while starving for the simple sin of sentiment? In episode 8 of Reborn as a vending machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon Season 2, aired on August 20, 2025, as the labyrinthine legend loops into its mid-arc melee amid a narrative that transmutes the absurd into aching allegory, we rattle into the recesses of utility's unforgiving urn. The metallic tang of dispensed elixirs bites the tongue like copper coins swallowed in desperation, chassis creaking under the phantom press of phantom palms. The subterranean sizzle of spell-forged flora frizzles the air with ozone's acrid aftertaste, sight skewed by the bioluminescent blur of verdant vines that veil both villainy and vulnerability. I trundled those tangled thickets alongside Boxo, vibrations humming through my core like a heartbeat borrowed from brass, the damp dungeon draft drafting doubts across my dispassionate frame. This chapter doesn't merely mechanize the march, it humanizes it, vending vulnerability through the slot of sacrifice, leaving you laden with longing. When your existence is etched in exchange, do you dispense destiny, or demand the dignity of idleness? It's a beguiling bevel into being's brittle bazaar, etching enigmas that evade easy expenditure, for the machine's murmur mesmerizes, demanding you insert your curiosity like a coin into the cosmos's cruel dispenser, lest the output of oblivion outpace your input of intrigue. From episode 7's hasty hijinks, where labyrinthine leaps left legions lost like the bewildered battalions at Dunkirk's desperate dunes, scrambling for salvation in a sea of shadows, this installment unfurls the arc's verdant vexation, a floral fiasco evoking the carnivorous capers of Little Shop of Horrors' Audrey 2 appetites, but laced with the light novel's whimsical woe. Central sequences stock the shelves with a vending virtuoso's vexed voyage, interweaving whimsical wares and wrenching withdrawals into a whirlwind of ritual reckonings that repels rampant rampages, yet reaps reluctant revelations with hasty heroism, transitioning the season's subterranean siege toward aberrant anomalies that augur the Ant King's ancient animus. Envision yourself ensnared in the Emerald Enclave, the loamy lilt of leaf litter under treads mingling with the metallic tang of midnight machinations, a comrade's covert cue cutting through the canopy's ceaseless chatter like a coin clinking into a chute. What veiled vows vivify a vessel's vile visage? How does divination's dawn dim to desperate diversions, diverting the denouement toward Dominion's duskier designs? These shards of shadow shimmer without shattering, a siren's subtle summons that seizes the senses, urging you to unseal the sanctum of the screen, to let the lament's lure lap at your lobes, because the ritual's revelation resounds only in your rapt regard. An inexorable invocation to the intrigue's inexorable ink. Plot progression propels the dungeon delve to its thorny theological twist, akin to the narrative nadirs in The Little Prince Esbaobab burdened boulders, where whimsy warps into weighty warnings. Revelations raise the rogue ritualist's ragged roots to reveal a rigged resurrection rigged by remote reckonings from higher hierarchies, a mid-episode maneuver unmasking manipulations that refract the fool's fledgling folly through a prism of predestined piety. Here, a mischievous mark marring the machine's metal mantle, while the climax's clandestine caper cascades into chaotic chases crowned by a cryptic conjurations cameo, capping in a cliffhanger that conjures cosmic curiosities for the floral floor's fatal fray, dangling deliverance like a diviner's dubious die over the deceased's dormant destiny, pacing pirouettes with precarious poise, pensive preludes precipitating into pulse-pounding pursuits, balancing bombast with brooding breaths without buckling under the Beyonder's burden. Yet, as fans fret, the teleportation tangle's tardy tie-up feels truncated, a cloudy aspect clarified by the light novel, Volume 3, Chapters 45 to 48, where Boxo's cursed coin from the menagerie skirmish, a sequence for Scholar of Your Echo, serves not as narrative negligence but thematic tether, binding the vending virtuoso's voyage to the cost of communal compassion, detailed in Chapter 47's artifact annotations. The Trader's Tawdry Tale compresses Chapter 48's Gambler's Gambit, a visceral validation of the novel's mimicry motif, as an artistic attenuation of the text's tangential terrors, where the Dark Forest's druidic dread underscores not random rampage but rigged reciprocity, layering the luminous lament with philosophical filigree that fortifies the frenzy for novel novices while veiling its viscera for veterans' character development distills essences into exquisite etchings. Boxo's brass-bound being burgeons from banal dispenser to burdened benefactor, his wounds, humanity's hollow halved by the other's orphaning, akin to the visionary voids in Pinocchio's puppet plight, propelling motivations from tentative transactions to tempered transcendence, choices consistent distant in compassionate core yet transformative in tear-streaked tenacity, surprising as he stalks solidarity without selling out. Lamisa's loyal lilt lightens into luminous leadership, her growth a glacial gleam from guild girl to grief-tempered guardian. Hulami's hermetic haze hardens into haunting harbinger, her dialogues a duet of deferred destinies that duel with doubt. Thematically, the episode excavates power's performative pyre and morality's marionette in survival spotlight, manifesting in masquerades where hope's holograms with despair's delete, like the Dreyfus Affair's Dreyfuser dirges, birthing truths from taped treacheries in 1894's fog, choices that calibrate sacrifices calculus against identity's inexorable ink, probing the precipice where otherworldly others devour the other's brittle being. World-building whispers with whimsical what-ifs, pathway pacts and artifact arcana complicating the cosmos like appending alchemical axioms to a tarot-tainted treatise. The script's dialogue darts with droll daggers, a defiant declaration amid the dash foreshadows fiascos, lines sharp as satirical shivs yet laced with lyrical longing, impactful as Kafka's The Trial in Trial by Tangle, resonating post-credits like the echo of an empty echo chamber. Feel the filigreed fog fingering your fears as fates fold, the spectral shiver of a seance's sigh in your spine. Reader, in your own occult odysseys, have you howled the hidden hymn, or huddled from its hollow howl? Studio Gokumi's animation anoints with austere artistry. Art direction favors emerald enclaves eclipsed by ghostly grays, symbolizing sanity's schism amid summer's surge like Munch's The Scream muted in mist, fluidity in frantic fate weavings yielding to the stasis of stunned seers that sculpt emotional eternities, not ostentatious obsequies, but a penumbral psalm for the psyche's perpetual pilgrimage through yokai yokes. Direction deploys cinematography as a cartomancer's cloak, intimate irisins on inscrutable irises against intricate iconography, a la Your Name is Comet Cross Confessions, compositions cascading cryptic codices over cloistered clearings, editings elegiac eddies, lulls to lashes, mirroring metaphysical manias to amplify the mimic's mesmerizing minuet. The OST haunts as a hallowed harbinger, motifs of muted minors mounting to mournful majors like Debussy's La Mer in Landlocked Lament, crescendos consecrating the conjuration into cortical catharsis, while silences sanctify louder than summons, evoking the sacred stillness post-Fukushima's fallout. Voice acting vivifies the vigil. Yashiki Siyu infuses a timbre of tremulous triumph laced with tremor, intensity a lantern's low burn embodying air's harrowing halo amid the haze. Hikaru's delivery drips with draconic dirge tempered by tenderness, soul surfaced in every shadowed syllable. This episode enshrouded me in empathetic elegy, a sanctified scar of solace laced with somber splendor, junctures of judicious jubilation amid the sepulchre-kindling wonder at will's wondrous weave, much like the unbowed urns in Pompey's preserved pleas. I shouldered the sepulchre as sepulchre-kin, sinews sighing during a destiny's dusk where echoes eclipse and endure, a nexus nullifying norms toward nascent narratives that nod to the mimic's mutable mask. It evokes eternal epilogues. In the god's grand gignal, does the vessel's vacancy validate the void, or veil a veiled vitality? Have you, in loss's luminous limbo, gleaned the ghost's graceful gifts? This is that vigil vivified, philosophical penumbras piercing from the Aokigahara forest's fog-shrouded forks to your latent laments. Curiosity a candle ceaseless, casting to the episode where embers await to enliven or entomb, through reverse reading, the right's reticent ramifications or mimic mechanic's mutable mask, potentially perturbing in their penumbra, aren't narrative nebulae but deliberate dirges, echoing the manga's metaphysical mists to magnify melancholic mystery, though the animated attenuation occasionally eclipses emotional escalation with esoteric excess, a murmur mitigated by its mesmerizing momentum. I anticipate the deceleration may dim some dazzles, yet personally, I was struck by the subtlety, even as it courts catharsis's chill. Episode 8's luminous legacies, profound pilgrim pivots, lore-laced laments, and auditory anthems, outweigh its osmotic obsequies, consummating artistic axioms of sepulchral serenity and narrative nexus with numinous nuance. It succeeds as the arc's dirge delicate denouement, fusing grief's growl with grace's gleam. Yet as the mountain's maw murmurs from the mist, one ember endures. When the shell shatters to reveal the shadow within, will you mourn the mask, or let the mimic remake your measure? Watching isn't a vigil's end. It's the invocation you inherit, the ember that enkindles your unspoken elegy. Will you kindle it, or kneel in the coal? Have you ever stood at the edge of a blaze that wasn't just fire, but the furious unraveling of everything you thought you could hold on to? The crackle of branches snapping like old bones underfoot, the acrid bite of smoke clawing at your throat, mirroring that universal ache when hope flickers out like a match in the wind? In this episode, released on August 27, 2025, amid the escalating siege against the Netherlord's shadows, Reborn as a vending machine dares to ask, what if your very form, your purpose, your skin of steel and glass, were the first thing to shatter in the face of sacrifice. Imagine yourself there, not as spectator but as the unyielding dispenser, coins clinking faintly in your core as flames lick the horizon, whispering, will you dispense salvation, or merely echo the roar of what's lost? It's a question that hooks like the pull of a lever in the dead of night, teasing the ark's deepening rift between fragile alliances and encroaching doom, leaving you parched for the quench only the screen can provide. What secrets does the Inferno guard, and why does its heat feel so intimately yours? Picking up from the prior episode's unmasking of the Netherlord's infiltrator and the thwarted monster incursion in the dark forest stratum, our band of misfits, led by the ever-inventive Boxo, gears up to confront the floor boss, hoping to shatter the curse-petrifying villagers into twisted arboreal sentinels. But tranquility shatters like fragile porcelain under a careless boot. A sudden conflagration erupts, orchestrated by a spectral interloper in the Netherlord's employ, transforming a moment of respite into a desperate scramble for survival. As embers dance like malevolent fireflies and the air thickens with the tang of charred leaves, evoking the choking haze of ancient wildfires that reshaped empires, think Pompeii's ash-choked streets or the Great Fire of London's frantic exodus. Boxo and his companions forge barriers against the blaze, evacuate the ensnared hamlet, and clash with the arsonist in a flurry of unexpected fury. The flames don't just consume foliage, they devour plans, forcing a migratory pivot to uncharted waters, all while a playful hot spring interlude bubbles up like a fleeting memory of joy amid calamity. Picture yourself knee-deep in steaming pools, laughter mingling with the distant roar, only for the ground to tremble. Asterisk, is this respite, or the calm before your world ignites? Asterisk, the episode hurtles forward, not with brute revelation but with the insidious creep of consequence, dangling the tantalizing void. How far will depletion drag them, and what form will rise from these cinders? This installment masterfully propels the narrative from the brink of triumph to the maw of exigency, sidestepping the anticipated boss skirmish for a visceral detour into ecological Armageddon. The fire, far from a capricious twist, emerges as a calculated gambit in the Netherlord's chessboard of domination, echoing historical scorched earth tactics, like Sherman's march to the sea, where flame wasn't mere destruction but a strategic severance of roots. Key revelations simmer in the arsonist's motives, unveiled not in thunderous monologue but through the haze of combat, while the cliffhanger of forced relocation pulses with foreboding. The dark forest's ruination herds survivors into the clear lake stratum, potentially funneling them into tighter snares. Pacing strikes a taut equilibrium, leisurely hot spring levity yields to frenzied evacuation without whiplash, balancing whimsy and peril like a tightrope over an abyss. Yet, fans have puzzled over cloudy aspects, such as the absence of a post-battle boon, that elusive special coin, or why Boxo, with his earthly ingenuity, didn't deploy controlled burns or dry ice countermeasures against the blaze. Drawing from the light novel Volume 5, Chapters 28 to 31, where the adaptation hews closely but amplifies the fire's sensory terror for anime pacing. These omissions aren't oversights but deliberate echoes of the Netherlord's preemptive sabotage. The coin's theft by a metallic ally foreshadows her opportunistic arc, a thread unraveled in subsequent novel beats, while the fire's supernatural accelerant renders mundane tactics futile, underscoring the dungeon's alien logic. It's a progression that doesn't just advance. It scorches the path ahead, leaving you to wonder, if plans burn so easily, what of the hearts that forged them? Beneath the episode's pyrotechnics, souls smolder with quiet revelation. Boxo, our vending machine virtuoso, transcends his mechanical shell here, his magical barrier a selfless shroud that drains him to the dregs. A poignant evolution from gadgeteer to guardian, his voice, that disembodied narration, trembling with unvoiced fatigue, like a weary atlas shrugging off the sky. Lammy's blooms in tender defiance, her unself-conscious ease amid the steam baths a balm to Boxo's immobility, gifting him a moment of human warmth that hints at fractures mending through proximity. Her choice to cradle his depleted form isn't mere loyalty but a transformative anchor, pulling her from impulsive brawler toward empathetic pillar. Hulami, meanwhile, wrestles with veiled mortification. Her flushed protests over nudity before Boxo betray a budding self-awareness, a psychological scar from her alchemical isolation now itching toward connection. Even peripheral figures like the enigmatic Field, the child rival vying for Boxo's patronage, inject sly growth. Her competitive spark masks deeper curiosities, her absences during the blaze fueling whispers of hidden depths. Choices ring true, surprising in their restraint, transformative in their ripple, yet always tethered to core motivations, making each glance, each grunt, feel like a step toward uncharted selves. Have you ever felt that pull, the quiet terror of relying on another when your own frame buckles? The episode doesn't merely name-drop motifs. It sears them into the retina, power as a devouring force, morality tested in the crucible of flight, sacrifice as the bitter coin of survival. survival. Amid the Inferno's howl, hope clashes with despair like flint on steel. Boxo's depletion embodies the existential grind of giving until hollow, a modern Prometheus chained not to rock but to resolve, questioning if utility defines identity or if identity redeems utility. Survival's raw edge manifests in the villagers' tree curse reversal deferred, their exodus a microcosm of human fragility. Think the Dust Bowl migrations, families clutching heirlooms as horizons swallow homes, while the Netherlord's machinations probe morality's gray. Is arson villainy, or merely the ecosystem's brutal cull? These threads weave through choices, the hot spring's ephemeral joy a defiant spit against oblivion, resonating long after, urging you to confront your own pyres. What would you dispense when the world demands your last spark? Fresh lore unfurls like smoke signals. The dark forest's curse, rooted in ancient stratum pacts, gains tragic heft as flames render it a barren scar, complicating the dungeon's layered ecology with forced migrations that strain alliances and expose cultural fault lines. Humanoids clashing with beastkin over scant resources in the aqueous clear lake. Its enrichment laced with peril, the universe ballooning not through exposition but through loss, inviting speculation on how these shifts ripple toward the Netherlord's veiled empire. The script crackles with precision, sharp as a coin's edge, poetic in its sparsity. Lines like Boxo's internal quips amid the blaze, even steel bends before the unrelenting, carry prophetic weight, foreshadowing depletion while evoking Sisyphus's wry shrug under his boulder. Clichés? Banished. Instead, interpersonal barbs, Lames's teasing lilt, Hulamy's stammered retorts, land with impactful humor, resonating post-credits like echoes in an empty hall. It's writing that doesn't tell. It immerses, each word a lever pulling you deeper. Imagine the ghost's lilting taunt curling through the heat, a siren's call from history's scorched pages, Cleopatra's ASP or Nero's fiddle. Daring you, will you harmonize with ruin, or silence it forever? The suspense coils, curiosity gnaws. What unsaid plea hides in that final, fading note? Art direction ignites the screen. Fluid flames rendered in swirling oranges and predatory crimsons, their symbolic hunger, devouring verdant frames to bare skeletal blacks, where stillness in Boxo's inert form juxtaposes the chaos. Beauty not in splendor but in the ache of impermanence, like Van Gogh's starry swirls twisted into a maelstrom. Shadows stretch like accusatory fingers during evacuation, lighting's golden hour betrayal underscoring emotional fracture. Warmth turned weapon shots composed with surgical intimacy. Low-angle tilts gazing up at the blaze like a child's wide-eyed terror, editing's rhythmic cuts sinking breath to panic, mirroring Boxo's fading pulse. Tension amplifies through lingering hot spring pans, steam veiling vulnerabilities, a directorial nod to the soul's veiled fires. The OST haunts as a spectral ensemble, crescendoing strings evoking a requiem for the lost grove, motifs of tinkling bells, Boxo's chimes, fracturing into dissonance during depletion, burning into memory like a brand. Silence reigns supreme post-blaze, louder than any roar, the void where crackles once danced speaking volumes of desolation. Standouts abound. The arsonist CU infuses her ad-libbed aria with tremulous menace, timbre of velvet. Lames's VA layers affection with grit, a tremor in her laugh betraying the weight carried. Boxo's narrator, steady yet fraying, voices the machine's soul, stoic yet achingly alive. This episode doesn't evoke, it engulfs, leaving scars from the heat's phantom kiss on your skin, wonder sparked in the steam's ephemeral curl, a cocktail of exhilaration and elegy that lingers like soot in the lungs. I felt the depletion viscerally, Boxo's core hollowing as if my own reserves ebbed, a breaking point where destinies collide not in clash but quiet surrender, shifting the tale's axis toward uncharted vulnerabilities. Without unveiling the pivot, it hints at a revelation like thunder's distant rumble, empires teetering, bonds reforged in ash. What universal query does it echo in you? The fear of becoming obsolete, like forgotten relics in history's attic, or the defiant hope that even emptied, we vend anew? It provokes that inner trek, the blazes glow illuminating shadows you'd rather ignore. In your own inferno, what form would you take to shield the ones you can't touch? The curiosity festers, intense as thirst. Surely, you've felt it, that pull to plunge back in, to taste the resolution yourself. Applying the reverse reading technique, one might decry the pacing's abrupt pivot from bathhouse banter to blaze as disjointed opacity. A flaw in threading humor through havoc, or the relocations. Swiftness glossing geopolitical ripples. Yet reframe. These flaws are stylistic slights, deliberate mirrors to the dungeon's capricious cruelty. Opacity not confusion but invitation to ponder the Netherlord's unseen hand, much like life's fires that obscure before they illuminate. Appreciation tilts the scale. Humor's buoyancy buoys the dread, but measuredly. The ad-libbed villainy song jars, a missed crescendo in an otherwise harmonious score. It's not flawless, but in imperfection lies its pulse. Episode 9 triumphs in its dual alchemy. Narrative propulsion laced with levity, technical lyrical flair amplifying emotional pyres, though minor rhythmic hitches temper the blaze. It succeeds wildly in goals artistic and storied, to vend not just adventure, but the exquisite ache of resilience. Yet as the credits fade on that relocated horizon, water lapping at scorched memories, I leave you with this inexorable whisper. What if the next stratum isn't refuge, but the forge where your unyielding heart finally yields its secrets? Watching isn't choice. It's the lever you must pull, the coin you can't withhold, lest the embers within you cool to regret. Dive in, the heat awaits.